Avdia, obviously, and Toumani Camara. And then obviously Dame's not going anywhere because he's got a no trade clause. And we've talked about how the new ownership group views Young Hansen and how the front office is still really high on him. Outside of those five, I think everything is pretty much up to, subject to change. I think they could keep Jrue. Jrue's been really good, especially lately as they've kind of had this push towards the play. And he's had a couple of huge games. He hit 7 threes in each of their last 2 games that really, kept them, alive and stopped some of the Clippers runs in that Clippers game on Tuesday. And he's been pretty good. But I also think he's rebuilt his value a little bit as far as, the last season that he had in Boston where his value was kind of lower and they, got him and then he had some injuries, but he's been pretty good since he's played. So, I think they could keep him. I think they could trade him. I don't think there's really I think it's going to depend on what his market is now on the trade market. The guys that I named, I think are the only 5 guys that I don't think are really on the table to be traded. Anybody else, I think, is at least, you have to at least take offers. And, if they get, real value for Jrue, if they can get like a, first round pick from somebody or something like that, then I don't think you should be closed off to trading him. But he's been pretty important to them this season when they've had all these other injuries, keeping them kind of afloat and stabilizing them. And he's also been, just like Dame, he's been a really good locker room guy and a veteran and a culture guy and all that stuff. So I don't know. To answer your question, I don't know. I could see it going either way pretty easily.
Definitely. And speaking of guys being moved, Scoop, Shaedon, what is first off? Shaedon, his development, like he's gotten better every year. If you look statistically, all the stats have like increased, like he's gotten more efficient, and there's things to like, but like the impacting and winning, I don't like. While he's on the court, is it there or is he more just a microwave? And then Scoot, it's a really weird year in the sense that the injury, there was not a lot of clarity of the severity of the injury. It felt like, and I think that you guys didn't even know. And I feel like the team kept that maybe a bit secretive. And also, it's a weird situation with Jrue, Denny Avdia, now Dame. Like a lot of people even Shaedon need the ball in their hands to be effective. And they're all kind of either secondary playmakers or more primary playmakers. So how does the timeline move with them? And then obviously Stu's going to become extension eligible, and Shaedon just signed, I think, a decently valued extension. So what's those 2 guys where they could become integral parts of this team, or they could maybe be seen as trade chips for something maybe bigger? And I find those 2 guys very interesting because of what they bring to the table and the flashes that they've brought. But it's just like, is that a cornerstone or not?
That's kind of where they are. And that's why I didn't include them in the list of those guys that I think are definitely like 100% going to be around long term. I think there's a world where both of them could be, but I guess so. With Shaedon, he's the most talented player on the entire roster. And, obviously, what the athleticism is. You've seen the dunks, you've seen the highlights. Like you said, he's gotten more efficient as a shooter year over year. But, he has the physical tools and the ability to be a really elite defender. Like the physical talent is there for all of that. The issue with him over the course of time, and this has kind of fluctuated, it's gone, sometimes it's been up, sometimes it's been down, has been just kind of the general effort and focus. Like last season when they went on that run, the second half of the year, the day that run started was a game against the Bulls. And before that game, Chauncey told us that he was moving Shaedon to the bench and putting Chris Murray in the starting lineup. And we asked him why. And he said, because I haven't liked the way that Shaedon has been engaged on defense lately. Like he said that publicly. The coach said that. And then Shaedon, to his credit, responded by improving on that end and winning his starting job back. But it's kind of come and gone, that part of it. And, leading up to him getting that extension, there was like a question during training camp of, who's going to get the 5th starting spot? Is it going to be Shaedon or is it going to be Jeremy Grant? And in training camp, Shaedon came out and he took that spot and he earned it. And then he got that extension. And since then, it's been kind of a similar thing. There are nights where he's completely engaged on that end. And there are some nights where he's either taking possessions off or he doesn't really know where to be or whatever it is. I think Shaedon, if you took Scoot's, I'll put it this way, if you put Scoot's like attitude and mentality and work ethic and how much he's in the gym and all that stuff, if you put that stuff in Shaedon's body, he would be Anthony Edwards. But instead, Shaedon right now, as of right now, he kind of is, we're talking about him as like, we don't really know what he is long-term, and he's got some incredible talent and flashes, and we don't know if it's going to become a consistent thing. I agree with you that the extension that they signed him to is pretty reasonable, 4 years, 90. So that's what, like $22 million a year. That's pretty reasonable in the new cap environment for a guy who's either like a fifth starter or a sixth man. That's just kind of the market value. So it's also a situation that, just like with Jrue, it could go either way, where like that contract I think is reasonable enough that if they do keep him around and he just kind of stays as the level of player that he is right now and doesn't take that next leap into an all-star, that's still not a terrible contract to have on the books, but there's also still enough upside, and he's on that type of contract that you could see another team like talking themselves into, hey, if we get him into our environment, we can turn him into, what, people thought he could be when he went 7th overall in the draft. But, overall, like I could kind of see that going either way with Shaedon, honestly. And with Scoot, this year was just so brutal for him because after the Jrue Holiday trade, Scoot spent pretty much the whole offseason, or a lot of it, in LA with Jrue, doing all of Drew's private workout stuff at UCLA and working with Drew's trainers and doing all of his off-season routines and like learning from him. And that went really well. And everybody in the organization was really excited about how the summer that Scoot had, and everybody was like ready for him to have a breakout year and build on what he did the second half of last season. And then the week before training camp, he was playing in a pickup run at the practice facility and tore his hamstring and then missed the first 50 games of the season. So like, I don't know, man. That's just, it's brutal. And then, he's come back and he's had some games where he's looked really good. And then he's had some other games where some of the issues from the first couple of years in the league have cropped up, where he's not really able to finish as strongly as you would think he would, or the shot isn't there, or, he turns the ball over, kind of makes reckless decisions with the ball sometimes. So it's still a situation where, as you said, he's extension eligible this summer going into year 4. They still don't really know what he is long-term. So that's another one where I could see that one going either way. They could say, look, we still believe in Scoot. We've seen enough that we think, he's worth continuing to invest in. We're going to keep him around. Or they could say, hey, this isn't working out. We could, let's see if we can trade him somewhere and maybe he can get a fresh start somewhere else. Like everything I think is on the table right now for both of those guys.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, just talking about like just coaches now, like Diego Splitter. Like,
yeah.
What are your thoughts? Do you think he'll get rid of the interim and just be called the head coach now?
Well, the guy that's going to make that decision has owned the team for 3 days, so I don't really have too much of a read on it. I think if it wasn't for the ownership change and an organization was going to be status quo, I definitely think that Joe Cronin would want to keep him around and remove the interim tag and at least give him a shot for the next season to start from scratch, with a fresh start and a